Ever since the stock market has taken a turn for the worst, you might be wondering if and where you should be investing your money. I definitely know that 2022 was a hard time for me, and figuring out the best place to invest your money is no easy task. There are so many different options to choose from. You might hear people say that the best thing to do is invest in the stock market, while others will advocate paying off all of your credit card debt, and then you can also pick the safe route of investing in your education, going to university and getting a high paying job, then maxing out your retirement plan to make sure that you always have enough funds available. Throughout this video, I'll be showing you what I truly believe is the best strategy as someone that's gone through the traditional advice of going to university and saving up to buy a house. You can start using the strategies in this video today to make sure that your money is invested in the most optimal way and you don't miss out on any potential opportunities. Jumping straight into the first example, which is having an emergency fund. I definitely overlooked the benefits of an emergency fund when I was a bit younger. In my late teens and early 20s, I always thought that all the spare cash that I had set aside should be plowed directly into the stock market to make sure that I can start making some money from it. Or the excess money that I had was just spent on other things that gave me some momentary gratification, like buying new clothes or a phone or going out and socializing. Essentially, it's money that I really should have kept on hand because I never really had much spare money set aside if something did go wrong, which was quite stressful because if I actually needed that cash to, say, fix my computer or repair my car, if say it had a cracked windscreen, I didn't have that money on hand, and then I had to panic and try and quickly gather that money together to pay for the necessities which I had actually needed. With things like COVID, it really made sense to have an emergency fund available. People couldn't work and generate an income for themselves. There was limited support from the government, so it really came down to you as the individual to support yourself. So that age-old advice of having 3 months worth of your expenses really made more sense once all the lockdowns had happened. The lockdowns really brought home the idea of the necessity of having some extra cash just to make sure you're ready for whatever unexpected things that life can throw at you. I didn't really take the idea of the emergency fund very seriously until COVID had come around.
I made a mistake here. I was wrong.
And you might be wondering, how much should you exactly have set aside? I think a great starting point would be having a cash supply of $1,000. Once you have that, then working your way up to having 2 to 3 months worth of your expenses set aside in a separate bank account would be an excellent emergency fund to have. That way you'll never get caught out and you'll always have some cash available just in case anything unexpected happens. Another number one strategy that you can use to maximize your returns and increase your knowledge about investing and finance is dropping a like and subscribing to the channel. The second tip is starting to invest. Now, while making an emergency fund seems like quite a common sense and easy to follow strategy, just setting aside $10 to $20 a week into a separate bank account until you have a nice lump sum of money available, investing is something that people typically know they should be doing or that it would be beneficial for them financially, but they don't actually know how to get started, and they make up every excuse under the sun on why it's a problem and why it's going to be too difficult and it's not even worth trying. They'll say to themselves, isn't investing risky? Don't you have to be rich to invest? What if I lose all of my money? I was exactly the same in the beginning, and the more time that I actually spent researching the stock market and how investing works, the more I realized that it's not risky at all. Now, of course, there are definitely risky investments out there. Taking a look at something like GameStop, which can see a massive increase in price, but it's more or less just the same as gambling. You don't know how long the stock is going to keep going up in value, and typically it just comes crashing down as fast as it goes up. You definitely don't need to be a genius to make money in the stock market. Now, there are very tactical plays that you can do and specific indicators that you can look at to help increase the chances of you making a profit, but that can be quite a time-consuming process that isn't always very profitable. The easiest thing that you can do is invest in ETFs or exchange traded funds. If you're familiar with the channel, you'll most likely have heard me talk about these before, but just to give you a quick rundown, essentially an ETF is just a collection of different stocks clumped together that is tracking a particular sector in the market. Now, some really great ones that you can pick from are those that track the S&P 500, which is just a collection of the biggest 500 companies in the American market. Now, the one that I personally go with is VOO, which is made by an investment company called Vanguard. Now, this essentially just means that you're betting on the American market continually improving and increasing in value, which is a very safe bet to make, as the majority of the biggest companies in the whole world, like Google, Facebook, Coca-Cola, Amazon, Tesla, and the list goes on, are all included in the S&P 500. So when you buy into the ETF, you're going to get a very consistent return of 8 to 10% every single year. Now, some other options in terms of ETFs are SCHD, or the Schwab US Dividend ETF, which means that you're going to be getting exposure to some of the best dividend yielding companies in the world, and you'll always be getting an annual dividend payout to give you a nice passive source of income. There's also VGT, or the Vanguard Information Technology ETF, which over the past 10 years has been giving an average return of 18%, which means that if you had invested $10,000 into VGT 10 years ago, your portfolio would be worth over $52,000. If you're interested in learning more about ETFs, their benefits, how to buy into them, and the best strategy for selecting the right one, then check out the video on screen, as I previously covered this topic before. You're trying to win the war in the stock market through something like an ETF that tracks the S&P 500. Of course, with a meme stock, you can win the battle and make some money in the short term, but it's not going to be a winning strategy. And just like with anything, when you first get started, it's going to be difficult and you're not really going to know what you're doing. But if you try and learn a new skill like surfing, you're not expecting to be a pro at first. You're going to fall off the board a few times and it's not going to be very easy. But the more you do it, the more time you spend and the more consistency that you have, eventually you'll get better and better and you'll be surfing the waves of the stock market in no time. Let me know down below in the comments if you've jumped into investing and how your experience has been so far. Now, number 3 is retirement plans. You'll hear a lot of varied advice on these. Some people might say that you should max out your retirement contributions, while others say you should contribute the minimum and enjoy your life to the fullest. What option you choose ultimately depends on you as the person. If you're not someone that's particularly interested in investing or learning about money, then I would say maxing out your contributions is going to be the best thing for you, because this means you always have some money set aside and you're going to have some cash available for your retirement. Because most likely, if you're not interested in finance, holding on to your income and saving it most likely will also be difficult for you. So if you're maxing out your retirement plan, you're not going to be caught out when you actually reach the age of retirement with no money. You'll always have some cash set aside for when you finally do reach that age of retirement. If you're interested in learning about investing, then I would say contributing the minimum to your plan is going to be the best strategy. Now, in New Zealand, where I'm from, we're quite lucky. The government will actually match 3% of the money that you put in. So you're essentially getting 100% return for the 3% that you contribute. Even just dollar cost averaging into the S&P 500 is an excellent starting point, and quite frankly, you'll be outperforming the vast majority of hedge fund managers with this strategy who are paid millions of dollars to look after other people's money. And also, you need to keep in mind the criteria for when you can withdraw your money. Personally, in New Zealand, we use KiwiSaver as our retirement scheme. I know in America there's 401ks, but I don't personally have any experience with them. Now, retirement plans do have their similarities across the world, so I'll use KiwiSaver as an example, and you can see if these link up with the retirement plans that are offered in your country. In New Zealand and across the whole world, there's very rigid requirements for when you can withdraw your money from your retirement scheme. So for New Zealand, you have to reach the age of 65, or you have to be experiencing extreme financial hardship, such as bankruptcy or suffering from a medical condition, or if you're purchasing your first home. In America, you have to reach the age of 59 and a half before you can withdraw your money from your 401k. Otherwise, you're going to receive a penalty of up to 10%. So keep in mind those factors when you're contributing towards your retirement plan. If you're not someone that is even really interested in buying a house, or actually the practicality of purchasing a house continually becomes harder and harder. You're essentially chasing your tail the whole time, because the more money you save, the higher the house prices increase, and actually getting a deposit together from one person's income is going to be almost near impossible for the vast majority of people. So you have to ask yourself, is it going to be best to put that money aside into a retirement plan if I'm actually trying to buy a house, or should I potentially lower my contributions and put that money into the stock market instead of having it sitting in the retirement scheme? You also want to keep in mind if it's actually possible to transfer your retirement plan between different countries. You might not be planning on permanently living in the country that you're currently in or the country that you grew up, and you want to see if it's actually possible to transfer those funds, or if potentially you're going to be hit with fees or pay penalties. So with a 401k in America, if you want to transfer your funds to a different country, you're going to have to pay that 10% early withdrawal fee if you're doing that before the age of 59 and a half. For me personally, with KiwiSaver in New Zealand, you have to be contributing for a minimum of 3 years before you can withdraw that money and use it as a deposit to purchase your first home. And I hadn't contributed for a minimum of 3 years before I purchased the house that I currently have. So now I just have about $2,500 sitting in my bank account that I can't touch until I'm 65. So I would have been better off if I actually looked at the criteria first for when money can be withdrawn for a first home purchase before just contributing, because it's sort of backfired on me now, because I can't use that $2,500 at all until I reach the age of 65, which is going to be quite a while from now. The fourth tip is getting rid of debt. Now this is largely related to credit card debt and personal loans, which can have a massive interest rate of up to 14%, which will really eat away at your money over time. Student loans are also thrown into this category, but they have their own unique pros and cons as well. So taking a look at personal loans, if you get one out for $5,000 at an interest rate of 13.9%, you'll be paying just over $380 in interest if you pay the loan off over a 1 year period. So that's going to be an extra $112 every week for that loan to be paid off. Now, most likely people won't be paying off their loans in that 1 year time frame, and most likely they're not going to have a lot of cash on hand, and that extra $112 payment is going to be quite difficult, because most likely the personal loan will be used to buy a liability, more like purchasing a new car or a new phone, and those things need repairs. If your car breaks and you have to get the oil changed, or there's something wrong with the engine, you need new tires, the windscreen cracks, there's all these extra costs and that you have to pay for with money that you probably don't have, because you already had to get out a loan to buy the car in the first place. So getting out personal loans to buy liabilities that cost you more money is actually quite a vicious cycle that can be pretty detrimental for people. And also, people can get out personal loans that far exceed that $5,000 mark. If someone gets out a loan for $10,000 and takes 3 years to pay it off, then you'll be paying $2,286 just in interest. Getting out a personal loan can seem like not such a big deal, but it is always constantly eating away at your income with that interest, and most likely it's not going to be used very productively. Now, I've gotten out a personal loan with my partner to use as renovations for our new kitchen. Now, we both paid off the loan in 1 year, and the interest that we had on it was about $380. So $190 in interest altogether. So there can be times where it's not such a bad thing if it's split between two people, but overall, I would avoid getting out a personal loan, and if you had one, definitely pay off the debt as fast as you can. And taking a look at student loan debt, I personally think that this isn't something that you need to rush to pay off, given how much the loan typically is, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 or even more, depending on what you studied. So in New Zealand, again, this is just for the example that I can give, there's no interest on the loan while you're in New Zealand, but if you leave and go overseas, you'll be paying an interest of 2.9%. So hopefully before you study something, you would have done some research on how much the average salary is over a 5 to 10 year period in whatever degree or profession that you've gone to university for, to make sure that the loan you're taking out and the amount of financial risk you're taking is going to make financial sense in terms of the salary that you're going to get paid. If you have to get out $100,000 loan for for a degree that's only going to pay you $70,000 after say 5 to 10 years, then you might want to rethink if it's actually going to be a valid decision to do that degree and study to go down that career path. You always want to make sure that the end result of how much money you're going to make actually warrants the financial risk that you're taking with taking out that student loan, because you never want to be someone that goes to university, gets the degree, works for maybe 6 months to a year, and then realizes they hate that job, or there's no financial prospects, or it's not going to work out very well in terms of the amount of money that they make, and then they go and do something else, and now they have this giant student loan that they're probably going to spend the next sort of 5 to 10 years plus paying off. And whether or not you actually want to go to university and take out a loan to go and study, you shouldn't feel obligated or pressured to do that. It has to come from you and something that you actually want to legitimately enjoy, because taking out a business loan for $50,000 to $100,000 when you're 18 is pretty much guaranteed to not happen, but the government will quite happily give you that amount of money to go and study at university, even if you haven't done too much or any real research on what you're going to study and how much money it's going to make you. So definitely do calculate the loans that you take out. While you can quite easily get a student loan with tens of thousands of dollars, it doesn't mean that you have to take it or that you should feel that it's going to be the best thing for your life to go and study. While it is important to know these general money management tips, they're not going to make you rich. Ultimately, you're going to need to know how to invest and make your money work for you. This can seem like a daunting and complicated idea, but the video on screen is going to show you one of the most bulletproof stocks that money can buy. With this one single investment, you can use it to retire a millionaire and only have to contribute a very small amount of money over a few years. This strategy and investment can be used by anyone, no matter how little investing experience you might have.